Yeah, Trust family, great to see you as always. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to be really generous to us, hit us up on the notifications as well. But we have a big show today. We're talking about the U.S. men's national team and their 5-0 beatdown of Grenada. So let's get after it. Yes. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting installment of In Soccer We Trust with some of your favorite former U.S. men's national team players. I'll go first. I'm Jimmy Conrad. I'm here with Hollywood Heath, Pearce, and Charlie Chuckwagon Davies. We joined us very soon as we break down everything we just saw over the 90 minutes between the U.S. men's national team and Grenada in the first game of this iteration of the Nations League. Just as a reminder, we are the defending champions after that epic 3-2 win in Denver against Mexico last summer. So we're here to retain the crown. Heath, Pearce, great to see you as always. Now, we're going to give away a Paramount Plus gift card, but before I get into that and all the details as to how you can win yours and also announce a previous winner, I want to get your thoughts, your immediate thoughts on what you just saw from the U.S. men's national team and their big 5-0 win.
Oh, man, I'm so confused coming out of that one just because Jesus Ferreira did what I wanted him to do, but I wish he'd done it in the first half, but then did it later on.
Or against Morocco?
Yeah, against Morocco.
Or Uruguay.
I mean, look, Charlie's going to come on and probably – actually, I don't know what Charlie's going to say, but he's going to defend him in the fact that, like, it's hard to get 4 goals at any time. But it just felt like one of these things where you're playing against a very inferior opponent. And once we had the lead, then we all became stars. Then the space happened. Then the passing was sharp. Then the creativity came out. Then the ideas came around. Whereas before that, it was a little bit lackluster, in my opinion. What was your just initial thoughts on – at least when the game was close and when the game was at least in my opinion, worth something?
Well, we can break down the lines as you know, each line of the field once we kind of get into it. But my overall impression was that this was a game that feels a bit like a poison chalice, right? Because you're supposed to play well against an inferior opponent, and imagine if you didn't, then people be like, well, if you can't do it against Grenada, the 170th ranked team in the world, we can't trust you against Wales and England and Iran and the high pressure situation. And then, you know, if you do it, they're like, well, you're supposed to do it. You know, like Jesus Ferreira.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, you scored 4 goals, but you're supposed to. Look how many chances you had, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to give you that. Like,
yeah, he could have had 7. He could have had 8.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You can't win in these games. Now, I think that's an overall thing. I think what you end up seeing though is,
man, Jimmy, hold on. Dan Kane just came in hot before Charlie's even here, which we're going to have to bring up with Charlie.
Yeah,
but Ferreira just scored the same amount of goals as Charlie's U.S. men's national team career.
Oh, my. It's too early for that. That is such a flex. Look at Dan Kane coming in hot. Just to repeat that, Jesus Ferreira just scored the same amount of goals as Charlie's full total for the U.S. men's national team. That is Charlie's not going to be happy with that, by the way. But
he's not.
But
and he's going to say, I never got a Grenada. But actually, Charlie did get a Grenada. And he did score against Grenada.
He did.
That's a funny
2009 Gold Cup.
Take.
That was the last time we played against Grenada. All right, let's get into this Paramount Plus gift card, because if you didn't win one, we're going to give you another opportunity to do it. But we have a winner to announce, okay? It's from Wednesday's preview show, and it is Aaron Crane, at Aaron Crane 21. Congratulations, our friend. The $100 Paramount Plus gift card is yours. Our producer has already contacted you with all of the details. So, man, I'm already excited for you because you're going to get Champions League and Europa League and Conference League if you're into the Conference League, or if your club's in the Conference League, and Serie A and WSL, Scottish Premiership, Argentine League, Brasileiro. It's all popping off. NFL, a whole bunch of series. I think you're going to love it. I'm excited for you. Now, if you like soccer, P Plus is up there with oxygen and water in terms of basic needs. And we got the CONCACAF Nations League is going to be thrown in that as well, and all the other ones that I just named. But here is what you need to do, okay? Because we're going to give another one away. So if you are listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, or you're watching now on YouTube, this only applies to U.S. residents. Sorry about that. But for everybody that's in the U.S., that's good for you. So to enter, follow us on Twitter, ISWTpod, and drop your Twitter handle along with P Plus in the chats, or do it on Twitter. Or for those not watching live, put it in the comments section after the fact here on the YouTubes, and you have a chance to win. We want to continue to build up this community on multiple platforms. It's going to help us continue to give you the good stuff, like Brendan Aaronson on the last show. Hat tip for Heath for guilting him to come on, because he was fantastic, by the way. But that's how you're going to have to make it happen. AC, here he is. Says, thanks for the Paramount Plus, guys. Good game for what the team needed as well. So a big win. Before this, Jesus Ferreira hadn't scored in a while. We really hadn't had a number 9 score in the run of play. He gets 4 tonight. Mm-hmm. Is he your man of the match? Let's just start with the man of the match and work our way back from that. I mean, he's got to be, right? Those numbers, those numbers are the numbers.
Yeah, it's take the fact of who the opponent was aside. I thought Paul Arriola was really good. His movement off the ball, his commitment.
But he's an MLS player, so
that is true. We got to so like.
Yeah, I mean,
if he was an 8 on the day, you take 2 away because he's an MLS player. Jesus Ferreira as well, man of the match. Had he not played in Major League Soccer, he would have
got 10 out of 10.
Yeah. This is the problem: is the haters are going to go off tonight on like, but look who they're playing against, you know.
Of course.
And you and I both know that
fair.
like. Some of those matches are a little bit cagey at the start. Now, I think the U.S. was a little
England
bit
never gets those games ever, like San Marino or whatever. Never happens.
Yeah, it never happens. Like 8-0 or whatever, you know. Not a big deal. And so I think I'm going to go with Jesus Ferreira because he got into some really good spots. In the first half, it's funny, you know, I sort of feel like at times I'm like this, you know how like writers always talk about like I was writing the story and then it all changed. Like that's what it felt to me because I had my mind made up. It's like Jesus Ferreira. Gets into good spots, decent runs, dynamic player in terms of getting in good areas of the field, no final product. U.S. national team, no final product. You know, really struggling to get that final passing that was sharp or really creating these opportunities that, you know, as you go a step higher, the game happens a little faster. The player's a little more dynamic that you're playing against defensively, and you've got to have really, really sharp passing for that final pass to really create chances. And then they opened up the floodgates, which, you know, once you open up the floodgates, typically against these types of teams, all the players went from being like 6 and 7s in the first half to 8s and 9s in the second half, where now they're driving, they're dribbling more, they're doing more, they're a lot more confident. You see a little bit more of that creativity. I was actually critical of Timo Weah in the World Cup qualifying campaign about this, of like when it was convenient early on, then all of a sudden he's rolling over the top of the ball, he's doing little cheeky stuff, but when it's tight, I wasn't seeing it. And so this was one of those games that just makes it so hard to where it's maybe easier for Greg Berhalter to justify some of these things, right? Of like, oh yeah, I played Jesus Ferreira. Look, I told you, I've stuck with him, and now it's paid off. And now you have the answer you need, as opposed to maybe going Haji Wright, who maybe you don't believe in as much, and he gets 4 goals in a game like this. And now what do you do?
No, so here's what's interesting is that somebody asked Greg, I think before the game, why he went with the lineup he went with, and he said that the El Salvador game is going to be a little bit more difficult, with all due respect to Grenada. So we're going to start Horvath and Haji Wright in that game so we can test them and see them a little bit more. So there's clearly some method to the madness. And I mean, it's hard to argue otherwise. It's going to be more difficult in El Salvador, where we only drew 0-0 in World Cup qualifying. If you guys remember that game, had a tough time breaking them down. And I think that actually looked like we had a tough time breaking down Grenada until Jesus Ferreira finally broke through right before halftime. And then you could kind of see them. You could see the floodgates were coming. But before we go any further, we got to enter, we got to actually bring in, I should say, enter probably isn't the right word. Charlie Davies is with us. Chuck Wagon. What's up, Chuck Wagon?
Why is Heath so angry? Why is Heath angry after a 5?
Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, it's a 5-0 win, but it's against like win. I was literally thinking about it 30 minutes in, even when the team wasn't playing well, of like, what would have happened if we just gave these points to Grenada, like forfeit the game and just schedule another one tomorrow? Like what would have happened? There's no disrespect to Grenada. They're a developing nation. This is not about
disrespect, but I'd rather play.
It's a waste. This game. There's a few things, and I will get to it. Like a few things that we can take out of this.
Charlie's here.
There's a few things we'll get out of this game. I do honestly believe that. We'll talk about those. But by and large, worst case scenario as you're prepping for a World Cup. Literally worst case scenario.
Charlie. So we're doing man of the match right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to give it to Jesus Ferreira.
Jimmy's going to give it to Greg Berhalter again.
I'm not giving it to Berhalter.
Jimmy's giving it to Greg Berhalter. You know, 5-0 win over Grenada. Jimmy's giving it to Greg.
Yeah, CONCACAF. He's giving it to CONCACAF.
Giving it to Grenada for putting up a fight.
You can't. You have to give it to Jesus Ferreira.
How would you ever pick anyone other than Jesus Ferreira in a game? He scored 4 goals in the game. The score is 5-0. You can't pick anyone else.
Charlie, the fans of In Soccer We Trust are already on it that you have to give it to him because he's matched the same amount of goals that Charlie Davies had for his U.S. men's national team career, and he did it in one game. That's what they're saying in the chat.
Disgusting.
Do you believe they're saying that?
Dan came in hot, knowing that you were going to jump in soon, and said Ferreira just scored the same amount of goals as Charlie's U.S. men's national team career. Came in hot.
Wow. Yeah, he did.
Hey, facts are facts, dude. What are you gonna do?
But I'm not taking that bait. I'll tell you that right now.
Hey.
I'm taking the high road.
Hey, I'll tell you, it was about the 75th minute of this game, and I saw the gleam in everybody's eye where everyone wants to get the ball back and go, there's a goal for me tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. It is very hard to get a goal with the national team because there's just a finite amount of time, and it's an honor to play for the national team. But you know what's even better? Getting a goal with the national team. I never got one. I had some assists. But like when you get in games like that, you start going like, oh, there might be a little something to make the night memorable for me out here. So I'm going to we were attacking with 7 in the box at times, and both the fullbacks were the ones starting those attacks.
Do you remember there was a World Cup qualifier? Like it might have been like against Bahamas or someone like that in like 2008.
Barbados.
Was it Barbados?
Yeah, we won 8-0. Record still holds, by the way. That's still the largest win ever in U.S. soccer history.
And I'm like, how did I not get a game like that? You know?
Yeah.
give me those games. But
so Ferreira's your man of the match then, Charlie, because we get a
Yes.
lot of shouts for Luca De La Torre, who I thought was fantastic. And just to go down that road a little bit with De La Torre.
Kellen Acosta was fantastic as well, though.
Well, they were all
disagree.
trying to like De La Torre hit a good pass. You know, obviously a lot of good passes in behind the defense. Kellen Acosta set up Reggie Cannon in the first half. Wesley McKinney's dropping dimes from deep. I'm like, what the hell is going on with these guys? Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool to see them just look for that and the good timing of the runs and all that. Not all of them came to goals or anything, but it was impressive to see that. Now, De La Torre, can we just play that guy against Uruguay? Can I just see what he looks like against better opposition? Because every time we play him, it's against Panama at home, where we're going to have a lot of the ball. Honduras at home, we're going to have a lot of the ball. And now Grenada, who I don't think had any shots on goal throughout. I think Matt Turner honestly touched the ball 5 times this whole game. And as much as I thought he looked fantastic, De La Torre, I want to see how he creates space against a better team. And maybe we'll get to see him start against El Salvador, but I bet you we won't. So we got this guy that
it's so hard, man.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's hard to evaluate in this.
He's a guy that I'm just like, he could probably play 10 more times though, and it might be the style of play where I'm just like, I need another look, because he's kind of got that calm to him where he's kind of one speed and he does things really well. He's very efficient. And then after the game is over, I'm like, do I like him? Do I like him more than I did before? Because I do like him, but I just kind of look at him and go like,
I'm a fan.
Yeah,
I'm on the hype train for sure.
Yeah.
But I think he'd be great. I think he's a situational starter where if you're going to have a team that sits in a low block, I think De La Torre might be your guy, as opposed to Musa, for instance, who, as we know, when he gets into those final third spots, he lacks that final pass, that final decision that can unlock something. Sorry, Charlie, I kind of took all your airtime. You can take it away here. Who's your man of the match? What were your thoughts?
No, Jesus Ferreira. He scored 4 goals. He grew within the game. Of course, there were multiple occasions where he was rushing his chances. Yeah, I think about the first ball that was played in behind the first half. He gets it on his left foot. It's a weak shot to the back post because he was reaching for the ball. And then the header, it's a standard header. He even had to get a little bit lower, and it went over the crossbar. Those were just like 2 gimme chances, but he still finished 4. In the first one, extremely fortunate that he's in a poor position. He should not be where he is when that ball deflects to his feet. But he takes a good touch, gets it out of his feet with his left foot, and finishes. So I want to see Jesus Ferreira score goals. He did that, and he scored 4 of them. So I know it's Grenada, and not much of a test, but at least it gives him confidence. I was saying if he scored 10 goals in this game, it doesn't move the needle. And maybe moves the needle for him.
He's supposed to score goals in this game, right?
A 5-0 win, that's what everyone expects. It might even be a 10-0 win is what people expected. So even with a 5-0 win, people are like, that wasn't a great game. I think we all like what Luca De La Torre brought to the table. He showed some quality that maybe we hadn't seen. But again, it's against Grenada. So it's tough. And this is why I was saying the Nations League, the Nations League semifinals and finals can be good, but when you get in these matches, it doesn't help you.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing,
ahead,
Jimmy,
Heath.
by the way, is that now we're moving to El Salvador, and we saw what that was like. And now the circumstances are even less so that we're going to go down to El Salvador. And again, deep block, El Salvador well organized, well coached, well managed. They're getting better. but it's still not World Cup international quality match. And it just changes the game. Now we could play a crap 90 minutes and we'll say, well, it's CONCACAF. It's tough. It's a tough place to go and play. And these two players had good games and, you know, everybody else was solid and these types of things that I'm just like, in these two games, I look back at Morocco, you know, I look back at Uruguay and I'm like, those games meant something to me, even though they're friendlies. And I would usually have those flipped, but those two games where you see the speed of the game, the commitment, the way you get punished when you make mistakes, those types of things where you're seeing it played more at an international pace. That's what I'm like looking at right now. And it's just hard for me to, I thought it was a great game for the team. I thought it wasn't very sharp in the first half. I thought that there was a lack of rhythm again in the first half, or a lack of risk at times of being sharp and taking chances in the right areas. But overall, like, you win 5-0 and it's tough to really, really beat down on a team, you know?
I want to know what you guys thought in terms of players that performances hurt them tonight.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we should go line by line, frankly, but I wanted to comment really quick on El Salvador. They played this Grenada team twice over the last week. It was a 3-1 win and a 2-2 draw. They've given up 3 goals to this Grenada team that couldn't even get a shot on us. So I like our chances. I know they're improving, and I know Hugo Perez, a friend of the show, and somebody we're pulling for, of course. But that, I think they have some vulnerabilities. Unless they maybe are calling different guys in for the game against us, I think it could be a bit of a struggle for them. But we'll have a special preview show on that for Monday, so make sure you're all liked and subscribed and turn on your notifications so you do not miss it when we go live in particular, or catch it on your favorite podcast platform. So let's just go. Goalkeeper, Matt Turner. Yeah, whatever. He touched the ball 5 times. Center backs, good to see Cameron Carter-Vickers out there. A couple 1v1 situations. I thought he did well. Yep. Same with Walker, Aaron Long. Nothing really there to rate. I thought Aaron Long was maybe trying to hit the big switch when he didn't need to in the first half, which was just, I don't know, just trying to show that he could do it. I remember making a note of that. Like, he could have played simple when there was a numerical advantage and he tried to hit the long one and it got cut out.
But Jimmy, you know what, by the way, on that, and I fully agree with that. There's not, some of these players I can't rate in this game, but in a game like that, you're trying to make an impression. You want to do, like, sometimes it's weird because you get into these games and you know where the simple pass is because all your midfielders are open. They're free. You know where that easy thing is. You want to you want to play the game a different way. And sometimes the game doesn't hand you that. And you don't want to also, if you're a defender, you don't want to lose 90 minutes and say, you know, you don't want to come out of it with Greg saying, I can't rate you from this game. So you want to almost at times force the game.
It'll hurt you in a lot of ways by doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Well, let's do the wing backs then. Anthony Robinson, obviously bombing forward, does very well at that. Reggie Cannon actually got a lot more forward than he did against Morocco. That makes a lot of sense. Here's my one concern for both of you guys, not only for the guys that started today, but also just for our wingback play in particular. I don't think we're that great at crossing the ball. I just don't think Reggie Cannon had a good chance to just hit one hard and low across. He kind of flubbed it when he got that good through ball from Kellen Acosta.
Yep.
Anthony gets himself in great spots. He hits them hard and low, but then sometimes we hit a lot of hopeful crosses. And when you hit hopeful crosses, the guys that are going to try to attack the ball they're just standing there, and it becomes more of a 50-50, and you can't really get a lot of power on it. We don't necessarily have variety. I don't feel like any of our guys hit the deep crosses, a la Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andy Robertson. I know that those two are some of the best in the world, but it would be nice to have a couple guys that had that in their skill set so we could actually time our runs, especially against a low block, where we could get down to the end line and get crosses, but we also can hit crosses from deep and take advantage of that particular ability or skill as a group as well. And that bummed me out because Anthony got himself in good spots, but kind of lacked that final product to put in something so dangerous that could have been an own goal or a tap in or whatever it may be. Chuck, I'll come to you first on wing backs. What do you say? Chuck, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so yeah. So what do you think about the wing backs and that comment in particular? Because that's the one thing I've note. I mean, there's nothing I could rate for them defensively, but attacking wise.
Did Charlie just not answer your question and just say I'm here?
Yeah, no, I think he did, but it's fine.
It must have glitched on him.
It froze. That's why I was like, oh,
you're like, Charlie, what do you think about wing backs? And you're like, Charlie, you there? And you're like, I'm here.
All I got was Charlie, you there? I would say, who are you crossing to if you're Anthony Robinson? In terms of playing it in the air, right? Jesus Ferreira is not a center
or even hard and low, though. Yeah, you got to get
but at least when sometimes when you whip a ball in, though, and you're forcing, saying, hey, that's where you need to be. Like, I still saw a lot of wild passes and crosses that didn't have a name on them. Now, there's only one guy in the box in the first 30 minutes. But, like, putting that ball in behind that back line and those types of things that wakes up a striker that says like, hey, that's where you got to be on that run, that sort of thing, for sure.
I mean, we've seen Anthony Robinson. It's been up and down with his service throughout.
Mhm,
But
mhm, mhm.
the problem is there's no one else. There's literally no one else. He has that position locked because there's no depth in that position. The only depth there is the possibility of moving Serginho Dest to left back. And we saw what that looked like. And Serginho needs to
Yeah,
be on the right.
he
So
does. Yeah,
Anthony Robinson is your left back,
I have no
for the
problem with it.
foreseeable
I just
future, right?
can we just work on something that's. It just feels like he gets in those spots, and this is me nitpicking, by the way, but you get into those spots, and we're hoping he does something, as opposed to, hey, we've actually thought this out. Anthony likes to get to this spot, and let's get two guys making well-timed runs, and then maybe have a trailing runner, a Weston McKennie. I don't see enough of that, and that kind of pisses me off, to be honest. Now that I'm talking about it some more.
The problem with Anthony Robinson's attacks is it's a volume play, right? If he crosses 10, you might get one in a really good spot, and if you're going to cheat up that much, Serginho Dest, sure, go wherever you want to go because you're good on the ball. And I trust that you have a final product to be able to bring something. Anthony Robinson, on the other hand, if they're going to cheat up and we're going to expose ourselves and leave ourselves a little bit vulnerable, it can't be 1 out of 10 where you're putting in a decent ball. You got to at least challenge a defensive line if you're going to get into the attack or be an attacking type, like attacking first fullback. That's how I feel about a fullback. I was probably a little bit in between, maybe not super defender, not a super attacker, but at least my emphasis was always on defending first, knowing that was my primary job. Anthony Robinson,
you like to overlap. You love to overlap.
I like to get forward for sure. And when I did, I tried to make the most out of those crosses, but it might be 3.5 times that I'm getting into a deep spot and trying to put in a ball. Anthony Robinson in every attack is trying to get the ball high and wide. Because
that's how the game has changed. The emphasis is to do that. If you do the same thing, if you were playing in the modern game where outside backs are now looked as, in the attacking third, wide options at all times.
But you have to admit that we also do cheat a little bit with our fullbacks. Like there's not a super great balance right now between them. Sometimes we got one crossing to the other. Even when we subbed them, there was still one crossing to the other. George Bello crossing to Cannon on the other side, where they're both high and almost in and around the box. And so while we have double pivots, that gives you a little bit of freedom to do that. I worry about that final product if you're going to be an attacking first fullback. And I think there's room for improvement. I agree, Jimmy.
I think when you look through I'm looking through this to the perspective, I had my glasses out, my lenses of a low block. At some point, for us to create space in behind, we're going to have to get people to step to some of our players. And so I think about it from that perspective, that if an Anthony can get forward into, 10 yards off the top of the box and is looking to actually cross from that position, that could end up drawing, because people, Wales, let's just say Wales, first game, somebody's going to step to him, and then maybe he can look to combine there. But he's got to hit a couple crosses from deep to set up that space for him to potentially combine and get a little bit deeper going forward. And I just want to see a little bit more of that. It's not all on Anthony, because to your point, Charlie, he has to have runners. So if he's picking up his head and guys aren't in good spots, but I wish, and maybe there is conversations, I'm sure there are in some capacity, but just to have some type of variety in what we're doing from out wide, as opposed to just us trying to get to the end line. Hopefully Anthony can pull something off, and that's going to draw a center back over, and then he can slot it across and we can tap it in, right? I mean, I love that that's part of it and that he has the ability to do that. I love his game. But I would love to see a little bit more, not only on his side, but on Serginho Dest, the right side as well, where we get those deep crosses in, because I think that could ultimately open up space, Charlie, in other ways that we could take advantage of.
Yeah, it's the sad thing that we when we're looking at the World Cup is it's still a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't England, we aren't France, where we already have our players, we have our tactics. Maybe there's a couple fringe players that you're looking at. We still have to figure out at times how we're going to play the tactics, in terms of transition, balance with the attack versus possession in the attacking half.
Mm-hmm.
These are all still question marks. The center back partner, the number 9, when, if and when Gio Reyna gets healthy, where does he play? And Brendan Aaronson again came in, looked pretty good. So if he continues to get, results when he plays, how do you keep him off?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to, then you got to get the best players who are playing on the pitch at the same time, and
Right.
that would mean Timo Weah playing him at least give him a shot at the 9, right? So maybe
Greg addressed that. He said that Weah usually plays better. He just said this recently. Weah usually plays better when he is with another striker up top, when they play a 4-4-2. So we know what we have with him, but we like what he's doing out wide, and we're going to just stick with that. I'm like, dude, we have 270 minutes left before we have to make our decision for our roster. We have 3 more games to evaluate these guys. You can't give us 45 minutes at Weah at the 9 so we can see what that looks like with Aaronson and Weah and Pulisic and all these guys on the field at the same time. Like, you can't give that to us. That's all I want, Chuck. That's all I want.
Whose stock got hurt today? That's what I want to know. Is like, this was a game where it was
I feel like Jordan Morris is the only one whose stock took a plummet. Not even like
a plummet.
Yeah, I would say a plummet.
Wow. He went in and did a cannonball right off the high dive.
Let's cross Jordan Morris off the list of ever coming back on.
I agree with you though, Charlie. In a game like this, and look, it was actually wonderfully said by Taylor Twellman, might I say, that he was talking about like this guy in an open field, pretty good. In a low block, no room to run into. He just didn't have a lot of ideas. And almost every time he got the ball, he played backwards. He get the ball, play backwards. Get the ball, play. Even in counterattack situations, get the ball, play backwards. Mm-hmm. He had one opportunity in and around the box. Great defensive play. That's no knock on him. Maybe could have played a little bit quicker, or made a decision to strike the ball quicker. But overall, he didn't look. He didn't look sharp to me. Malik Tillman, same thing. Kind of looked off the pace, not sharp passing, those types of things. The problem with a player like Malik Tillman, by the way, and I want your guys' take on this as well. He's a one-speed type of player. Now, we're not used to one-speed type of players. We're used to kind of hailing athleticism and speed, that change of pace, that explosiveness, that in and out of whatever. There are top players all around the world that are single-pace players that are so good, but they're clean. They connect every pass.
It sounds so harsh when you say single-pace.
Well, it's just that, like, you don't see something over, like, when you watch him aesthetically, there's nothing that blows your mind, right?
Yeah, it's almost like he's literally in cruise control.
He's in cruise control. And when that is something that's smooth and it's gliding and it's like connecting passes, Tony Cruz is a player that I think about when I think about it. And it's not one pace. They do have an explosiveness, but there's just this calm to them, this like tranquility of them always being in control. Even when they're driving forward, it looks like they're moving at a slow pace, but they've got control of the ball. Tony Cruz is a player that reminds me of that all the time, that has done that so well for his entire career, but he's at the highest level. When I think of Malik Tillman, I look at all the tools that he has and the way that he plays, you go, man, there's something there. But when it doesn't work out, you go, oh, man, this guy's bad.
Do you think, I'm going to jump in and say, and I want to hear from you, Charlie, after this. I want to throw it to everybody that's listening and watching live. Who do you think hurt their stock the most today? If you're listening to this at a later time, hit us up at ISWT Pod. Drop us a follow there on Twitter. Let us know who you thought, maybe your top 3 players that weren't so top 3, and then hurt their stock and maybe are out of the conversation. I mean, these are the games. This is what we're trying to decide, sink or swim time. Mm-hmm. With regard to Tillman, I felt like he came in and was trying too hard. I think he was really trying to put a stamp on the game, to do something of consequence, assist, a goal, do something. And I think that has to be taken into consideration. I get the sense that the staff will probably see the same, because they have limited minutes, these guys. And especially a player like Tillman, he feels like he's got to have to shine. Otherwise, I'm not going.
But his turnovers were just like square balls.
I get it.
And how do you think Jordan Morris feels? Because this was probably one of his last. It might be his last chance to really make the team, unless he has an incredible next 6 months. But for Jordan Morris, it was come in, show some creativity, run, take defenders on 1v1. It just, nothing looked sharp. Nothing looked clean. And it looked like he's been under all this pressure, because you were like hoping he would get going, and it just never clicked.
And he's a guy with almost 50 caps. It's not like Malik Tillman where you're like, hey, he'll figure it out. This guy's a super talent. Even in Germany, they're calling him a super talent. He just looked off the pace of there's just a few things about that you just go, he's just, like you said, I think he was trying too hard, and then got in it. You could see his body language when he'd miss a pass. He'd kind of throw his body down and kind of go like, man, I know I'm not this type of player, but this is what it's looking like right now.
Okay, before we move on to kind of the next phase of our conversation, Charlie, I did want to ask you that with regard to Ferreira, there were some times where I thought he found himself in good spots, top of the box. And then he would
Absolutely.
turn and face up the defender, and he would look to shoot. When I actually thought that Jordan Morris and Paul Arriola were both giving him good options. Like, he could have slotted them in. He could have laid it to Paul, and then got it back and then hit a shot. Like, I didn't think he was looking to combine as much as he should have. And I know that the 4 goals are going to dominate the conversation as they should, but there were little moments. If I was going to nitpick his game, was the fact that he just tried to turn and shoot all the time, as opposed to, and I actually thought he was pretty good at this prior to this game, where he would be looking for those combinations with Christian and Brendan and team away a little bit.
I think you're being a little harsh. I think you're being a little harsh.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
As a forward, you get in the box
and you shoot.
You're taught to take a touch and shoot, create your own space. I'm fine with that. Don't
you want a little variety where you are looking for those little?
The specific one you're talking about too, Jimmy, was a pop off the top of the box.
You
and
saw
he had a good
it.
setup on the first touch. Yeah, and Arriola obviously wanted it on a 1-2, but then what's he going to do? Feed it back to maybe he goes to Morris on that one. On a layoff,
Ferreira hits that ball wide, but if he just plays it to Arriola and then gets it back, he would have had both corners to aim at. I don't know. It's just a little thing, but if he's not looking for it, he's not looking for it.
But I would say what you wanted to see from Jesus Ferreira was runs in behind, which he did. Well-timed runs. I also like that the fact that he was thinking about the spaces that you would find him in. He would pop up, be available. But again, it's the presence that we're not getting from Jesus Ferreira. To drive 2 center backs out of position, the presence of getting in the box and everyone's looking for you because they know you're going to finish the chance. That doesn't exist right now. And
he popped off. By the way, he popped off in that situation, Jimmy, because we had 2 other players in the box at that time. We never have 3 players in the box.
I get it. I get it.
We got 3 players in the box.
It wasn't isolated to that situation. There were a few times where I thought those other guys were making some pretty good runs, and he just had his head down and was looking to shoot. And I get it. I respect what Charlie's saying. I mean, when you're a number 9, you got one job, and that's to hit the back of the net. And he did that to great effect tonight with 4 goals. All right.
Especially when everyone's criticizing you for finishing, right?
That's Charlie's brotherhood, by the way. You can't go after
all right. I'm being a little bit too harsh. I'm just trying to give us something to talk about. Jeez.
Why is he so angry?
I'm not angry. I'm a big Jesus Ferreira fan, and I was excited he scored a bunch of goals today. All right, we're going to take our first and only break, but when we return, we're going to continue this conversation about the U.S. men's national team and their 5-0 thrashing of Grenada. Maybe talk a little Canada, Curacao, and maybe look ahead to just a little bit to El Salvador as well. Don't go anywhere.
It's official. Everyone on the internet is possessed.
The world is weird. We investigate unexplained phenomena.
It's a bit convenient, isn't it?
There's something happening in the world that is evil.
God is here. And the devil is too.
What the hell?
What happened?
Religion.
Evil. New season June 12th. Then season 1 and 2 now exclusively on Paramount+.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust Everyone. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Hollywood Heath, Pearce, and Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies. And we are going to continue the conversation about the U.S. men's national team, who just beat Grenada in their opening game of the Nations League. We're the defending champs after we took down Mexico. How does that taste, Mexico? Yeah, we see you. Couldn't beat us after that the rest of the way. Gold Cup final, World Cup qualifying. Just throwing that out there. But I did want to add also that this was our 26th game in a row where we're unbeaten at home. That ties the record. The last time we lost in the United States was against Mexico in March of 2019. That is a big deal. Grenada are now winless in 10. It's not looking good for them to advance in the Nations League. But we have a big one coming up against El Salvador on Tuesday. We'll have a preview of that match on Monday. And, of course, we'll have another recap after that game as well. It should be a smidge more competitive. If you're just joining us, Greg Berhalter did mention that Ethan Horvath and Haji Wright will be starting that El Salvador game. So we know that at least 2 of those guys that we didn't see tonight will be getting the nod in this one. I'm curious if we'll see Eric Palmer-Brown, who didn't get to play at center back as well. Okay, so we talked about a little bit of stock down. And I don't know, Chuck, I'll come to you. Anything else you want to add to this? Any fringe player power rankings here? I mean, did anybody else maybe kind of just solidify that they're, I guess De La Torre for me has kind of proven that he is a lock for sure. Not that that was any big surprise, but when he does have time on the ball and when he can hurt you, I actually thought he did a really good job on the Paul Arriola goal, who did really well to get that out of his feet, Paul Arriola. But De La Torre breaking the lines with his run and then having that, just the weight of his passes are fantastic. However, when he came off in the 70th minute, Brendan Aaronson looked fantastic, friend of the show, and obviously a special guest for us this week on In Soccer We Trust. He was good as well, Charlie. So I don't know. I'm just throwing a couple names out there for you, but yeah, any players you want to discuss?
Everyone else, I wouldn't say anyone else in particular, because whether it's George Bello coming off the bench in such a short amount of time, he came in the 60th minute. I wouldn't say he impressed at all, but that's a tough ask for a left back in this game. I'd say Tillman. He didn't give me, I guess, the feeling of, oh my gosh, this is a player, coming from Bayern Munich. Oh my gosh, this is the player that's gonna be a game changer for us in the World Cup. This is more of a project. That's what I took from seeing Tillman. And it was just 45 minutes, but it wasn't one of those Yunus Musa moments where you go, oh, this this is different. Like, we need more of this. This was more of a talented, potentially talented player that will really help us, but not ready yet.
Okay,
and
so okay, two names for you, Heath: Reggie Cannon, Paul Areola. What on those two guys?
I thought Paul Areola was good. Again,
okay. Do you think he's booked his ticket?
Yeah.
Do you need to see more Paul Areola?
I think Greg likes Paul Areola. I don't need to see more. I think he's booked his ticket because he can take what the game is giving him and find a way to make an impact. His runs, whether they were in qualifying or in a game like today where you're playing against an inferior opponent, are great. His check back, spin out, and get in behind. His running in, kind of getting into these unique spaces where he's making defenders chase him, and that's creating space on the field for others. And when the players find him in those spaces, I think we're better off. Again, against this opponent, it's very difficult because. And by the way, I was trying to put it into context in my mind of like, how can we deliver this to the audience to understand? And I was like, this reminds me of like when MLS teams would play against college teams. The gap is way bigger than that between the U.S. national team and Grenada. It's not MLS team playing against college team. Those games can actually be pretty close because you can match up in a lot of ways athletically and things like that. And then some of those qualities come out. This game was like, I don't even know how to compare the quality of Grenada to the United States men's national team and the team that we put out on the field. So it's hard to put it into context of like just how far it was. But the U.S. won every 50-50 ball. They got to everything first. And even when they weren't sharp, they were never at risk of anything. And so trying to put that into context. But yeah, Paul Areola. And who was your other one?
I said Reggie Cannon. Now, really quickly about Paul Areola. He plays for FC Dallas. He's arguably having his best ever professional season. And if anybody doesn't know, the head coach of FC Dallas is Nico Estevez, who used to be the assistant for Greg Berhalter. So I feel like there's probably some good communication on how Paul is playing, how he should be playing, how we'd like him to play for the national team. And I bet you there's some good conversations that are happening behind the scenes. And I don't think it's any big surprise that Paul Areola is having a great season for both club and country, all things considered. So I think he is a lock. Reggie Cannon was the other name. I saw some people saying that he didn't actually, they thought that he was somebody that hurt their chances. It's hard for me. I think Reggie Cannon's on the field to be more of a defensive specialist than anything else. But Heath, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really hard because he's not Serginho Dest and he's not DeAndre Yedlin. He doesn't have the pace of DeAndre Yedlin in certain ways. And so when I think about that competition, I think Yedlin's ahead of Reggie Cannon in terms of the depth chart. Reggie Cannon, I think, is a solid player, but in a game like this, you want to see like what are the tools? What makes you special? What makes you stand out in a game like this? And we saw, he was forced to stay back. What was that against Morocco? Maybe that Reggie Cannon played in that one where he was kind of playing in a back three while we were kind of playing with our Robinson up higher. But now when he had a chance to really show like, can you be a two-way player? Can you contribute in the attack? Can you be dynamic in a lot of ways? I didn't see it. I did not see it, but I didn't see something that was bad. But in a game like this, where you're players that are fringe players or bubble players, that's where you want to see them kind of make a case for themselves to almost make it to the next round, right? Which is the El Salvador game. And then from there, like, can you get into that final camp and with a legitimate shot? Now, if you're 26 players, maybe he's got a chance, but at 23, I think DeAndre Yedlin is in front of him.
Okay, what do you say on that, Charlie? I'd like to get your thoughts on Cannon, and if you want to touch upon Areola as well.
Yeah, I'd say Yedlin right at the moment, he is ahead just based on experience and the pace, that X factor. Cannon is a very solid defender. And when you want your right back just to defend, great, because you're playing against an England, you're going to defend more. Although you want maybe a right back who can get behind on a counter, and that would be Yedlin. So there's pluses and minuses to both, but I think at the moment Yedlin's position is probably a little bit higher than Cannon's on the depth chart.
It's interesting. I think that might play out in terms of club form potentially, or if they get another run out and Reggie Cannon does well or DeAndre does well. I'm curious about that one in particular. They could both go though, potentially. I don't know. If we go to 26, it obviously changes the perspective on a couple of these players. Now, I mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again here after the break. If you want to get a $100 gift card to Paramount Plus, we're giving one away. We already gave one away to Mr. Aaron Crane a little bit earlier, and he was excited. He's in the chat right now. But we have another one to give away. This is how you win, all right? So, and this only applies to U.S. residents. I just want to make sure to enter, follow ISWT Pod on Twitter, and drop your Twitter handle along with P+ in the chat right now. Or for those not watching live, you can do it in the comments section later. Put your Twitter handle, P+, or just hit us up on Twitter. Just drop the follow and put P+ as your comments, and we'll see it. Maybe tag me, Charlie, and Heath. I don't know if that enhances your odds or not, but it doesn't hurt, if you want to follow us as well. And then you have a chance to win. We'll name the winner in our next preview pod on Monday for the El Salvador
Jimmy,
game. Yes.
There's 336,124,831 people eligible to win this $100 gift card on Paramount.
That's a lot. So I wish
I know it's for US only, but there is that many people eligible for this. So
that's a pretty big deal. And you get Champions League, Europa League, Serie A, and WSL, Scottish Premiership, Brasileiro, Argentine Primera Division. It's unbelievable. And obviously all the movies and series and all that good stuff. So go do it. Twitter handle, P+, make that happen. All right, boys. So this is our last game on home soil for the U.S. And obviously we ended on a high note. We have a 26-game unbeaten streak, which ties a record that we've already previously set. And now we hit the road against El Salvador. We have 2 yet to be determined friendlies in September. And that's it, 270 minutes. And I'm kind of wondering who you would start. I feel like we want to ask this. I kind of want to talk about who would you start in midfield? Because Brendan Aaronson, honestly, I give a little bit of love to Brendan Aaronson, and I know he's just on, so we want to give him some shine. But I also think he was excellent when he came on. He almost scored a cheeky goal. He came on for De La Torre, and he just provides something a little bit different than De La Torre. De La Torre was excellent, but when Brendan comes on, you can see what he brings to the table. So I guess I kind of want to know who wants to be put on the spot first. Heath, I'll come to you. I'll give Charlie a little bit of time.
I'm going to pass it. I'm going to pass it on to Charlie after I say this, because
who's your midfield?
Like
I just want to know your midfield right now.
We're a little. I feel like maybe I'm a little biased on that, because I'm giving Brendan Aaronson credit for a game that I'm not giving credit to anybody for, which was this Grenada match. But I feel like I liked Brendan Aaronson before because he was this energy, right? The press, these types of things. He's chaotic and you gets the team going and that kind of stuff. But I feel like maybe there's another element to his game, another level that he's getting to as a player that perhaps we haven't seen before. That isn't just this chaotic rush type of guy that can control the ball, that can do dynamic things in a way that I think I maybe wasn't giving him credit for. So I'm continuing to like him more and more. Now, when you think about a World Cup, it's going to be opponent-based. It's going to be, is a team going to sit against you? Does the game need to be won in midfield? Do we need to be more conservative? If it's conservative, then MMA is probably going to be your conservative bet, because you're kind of well covered there defensively. Maybe you don't have the same attacking firepower. But if you're going to go a little more offensive, I like Brendan Aaronson because he's going to do the shift defensively. He's going to be in the attack. He's going to be the energy. He's going to make the press more predictable, which I think Greg likes. And it's hard to, and Charlie said it earlier, it's hard to not imagine him in this team on the field with the tools that he brings and the style of play that this team wants to play. So when I'm thinking about it, I like McKennie, Adams, and Aaronson, and only because of the fact that we know that tonight I didn't think McKennie was all that impactful in the way that
I thought he was pretty quiet, all things considered.
Yeah,
but he didn't need to be. He doesn't need to be anything.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a mystery to his game. He's coming back from injury. He's getting the reps. He's going through the motions that he needs to get ready for a healthy season and be contributing to the national team at the World Cup. That's very different than other players' priorities for this game. Or Musa Adams and Aaronson, which I don't think we'll see, and maybe is a little naive and a little bit too inexperienced for a midfield in a World Cup. So McKennie, Adams, and Brendan Aaronson are my 3 at this point, which makes me so sad because Yunus Musa is so damn good.
How about you, Charlie? What are you going with that?
And I see CJ Ladd's comment. We have so many good midfielders. Why not 3-5-2? Because you're taking a midfielder away, actually, because you're adding a center back, and you have to play 2 wing backs. So Dest and Anthony Robinson. That narrows your midfielders to 3 and 2 strikers. We don't even have 1, and you want to go with 2 strikers.
Mm-hmm.
That would force Christian Pulisic to be one of those 2 strikers, and we don't have a player he could play off of yet necessarily. So I would go
to figure out our second center back. I don't know if we can add a third at the moment.
Exactly. So I'm gonna go with the Musa, McKennie, and Adams as my midfield.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment right now,
but even against Wales, I mean that feels like an overall.
I'm going with right now because Gio Reyna's not healthy, right? So I can't even count him until he's playing and he's healthy. I hope and expect him to be, but we can't count on Reyna right now. So I'm saying as of right now, I would go with that midfield, Aaronson on the right and Timo way up top. That's got to be the starting line.
Okay. By the way, Shirley, for the record, the mandate was on Weston McKennie to play the 10 spot tonight, and I didn't see him in a 10 spot at all for
because he's not a 10.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm saying they talked about him when he went to Juventus about how he's good in and around the box, the late runs, scoring goals, contributing in the attack.
There has to be space in a low block that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
He's not a 10.
That's why I think what's interesting is that I thought McKennie was quiet when we were to Heath's point. We didn't talk about him specifically, but when we were having difficulty finding that rhythm and trying to break the lines, and fair play to Grenada, they were still believing in their plan and strategy at that point, and it was still working. They were holding us off until the very end and getting fortuitous or some good saves. Their goalkeeper ran over like 4 of our guys, but when Aaronson came on, he was a spark. I know the opponent, they're tired, the game's defeated, but in terms of what Heath was saying and how he approaches the game, his decisions when he got into certain spaces, the composure, maybe he just demonstrated that he's an excellent super sub. Is kind of where I wanted to go with that. And maybe that's because we're going to still need somebody off the bench to have that type of impact. And I wonder if that's going to be potentially used against him. I only bringing it up just to have that side of the conversation. So Charlie, I'll come back to you. There is something to be said that some guys aren't good coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. And Brendan Aaronson looks like he doesn't care. Like if he wants to start, of course, but if he doesn't, it's not going to deter him and put his head down. He's just going to get after it when he gets on the field.
Grenada.
I get it. I get it.
Grenada. You coming off the bench versus Grenada. I wouldn't hold too much to that, but his movement is stellar. It's fantastic, Brendan Aaronson's movement. So coming off the bench and someone who's just going to be active, try and get on the ball, try and be creative, and he's not afraid of the moment. That is Brendan Aaronson. And to be honest, unless he has an incredible start to the Premier League season up into the World Cup, he is going to be on the bench. He is going to be the super sub. He's not starting. He's not starting over MMA, and he's not starting over Gio Reyna or Timo Weah on that right spot. So,
Heath, I have to come to you on this, and I agree with you, Charlie. If everybody's healthy, it's going to be hard for him to get on the field. But who else could make that type of impact in our that Brendan Aaronson has? Those things and those intangibles that we like about his game, because he does come on and all. There's a noticeable shift in how we approach it. Could a Gio Reyna come on and do the same thing? We saw it against Mexico, right? He dribbled through 8 dudes and nothing came out of it. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a better attacking sub that we could have that could really compare to what Brendan Aaronson brings. I just want to have this part of the conversation.
Brendan Aaronson was not consistent or great during World Cup qualifying. When he was in the 10 spot, he didn't have very much impact. At the wing, there were large periods where he was trying to do too much. He was chaotic.
On, dude.
But I will say his body language looks a little bit different. He's got this confidence to him right now because he's a Premier League player, right? His movements are more intentional. What he's doing, it's not just this buzzing energy that we saw before. And you're like, oh, in the right circumstances, this is amazing. In other circumstances, we don't know where he's going to go with the ball, and he's just sort of like kind of trying to figure it out.
Absolutely slashing this kid.
No, I mean this. And
right after we had him on the podcast,
he just said he was just buzzing around, like just.
Well,
just
because
buzzing.
that's the thing that he was bringing is that
no
energy
intention
to the team. But
said
now,
no intention.
now everything he's doing is intentional, right? He's in the half space, half turn, tight touch, drive forward. Like, I think that's a little bit different than before, where I think he had less tools before. And now he's developing some of those tools that make him more dynamic in his ability to attack. And that's what makes me wonder, can he be more impactful on the team than he's been before? Now, I'm not counting tonight as an example of contribution, because then I have to give that to everybody, and that's not the case. But I do think we are seeing Brenden Aaronson's evolution as a player, and him rounding a corner where he could challenge to be a starter in this national team, even though it's pretty clear that our midfield is set and that our front three is starting to become a little bit more. I guess the striker's not set, and like Charlie said, he'd put Timo Weah there, but we're not going to get Timo Weah there either. I don't think Greg's going to put him there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going down probably some rabbit holes.
We are.
That we
Deep,
maybe
dark
shouldn't
rabbit
have to
holes.
go down, because it's Grenada and they're the 170th ranked team in the world. And let's just leave it here. Final thoughts then, Charlie. I'll come to you first. Final thoughts of this latest installment of In Soccer We Trust before we start preparing for Monday's show, when we preview and look ahead to El Salvador.
I'm happy for Jesus Ferreira.
Mm-hmm.
He got the monkey off his back. 4 goals. That's massive. I know it's Grenada, but it's 4 goals. Like, okay, now we have a lot to look forward to in this El Salvador game, because Haji Wright gets his opportunity and Ethan Horvath gets his. So those are 2. Cameron Carter's, I'd like to see him now get another 90 minutes, because I thought he was solid tonight. And yes, it's the opponent was weak. So give him another chance, because he looked like he was up for it for this one.
Okay, and I like that. Cameron Carter-Vickers, he made the plays he needed to make, right? He only had a couple moments, but if you mess up those moments, that's when your stock goes down, everybody. So I appreciate you bringing up Cameron Carter-Vickers, and I'm curious to see how he does against a better opponent as well. Also, congratulations to him for signing a new 4-year deal with Celtic. That is a big deal. He's been on loan for so long. You know, must be nice to be settled with one particular club. All right, Heath, you, final thoughts.
Yeah, just a slow start to the game, but a professional approach and finish to the match. Again, Jesus Ferreira, I think this is massive. Like, I'm on the Jesus Ferreira train. His movement was fantastic. He was highly criticized in the broadcast, and rightfully so, for the chances that he missed, and then bounced back to put up 4. And I think that's a really hard thing to do, no matter who you're playing against. And another glimpse of, like, again, the talent pool that we have. We're just all waiting anxiously for who's going to be that rising star that doesn't just have that sort of peaks and valleys, but can get to that next level and stay there and be our guy. Even if that means a false 9 is now our 9, I'm happy with that if we can see that contribution over 90 minutes more than just sort of a few moments throughout a match. But yeah, overall, super excited to see this El Salvador team and this El Salvador match. And yeah, moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward, and just to piggyback what both of you guys said, a win is a win is a win, and the guys can only play who's in front of them, and they have to play this game in the Nations League. That's part of this competition and the scheduling. But only 270 minutes left before Greg has to name his roster for the World Cup. That is a pretty big deal. But that is the end of In Soccer We Trust for today. Thank you for hanging out with us. I know it's late for some of you. Thank you for hanging out, including Charlie and producer Des. But we appreciate your support. Make sure you hit likes and subscribes and do all that stuff. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, ISWT Pod on the Twitters. Put P+ to make sure you have a chance to win that Paramount Plus gift card. And we will see you on Monday for the El Salvador preview. We'll see you soon. Later.